Hey everybody, Ben Dorr here. I'm the executive director for Minnesota Right to Life, and I have some good news and some bad news for pro-life voters in Senate District 41. This is the Hastings, Cottage Grove, kind of Afton area of Minnesota. So if you live there, you're going to want to hear this, especially since the August 9th Republican primary is coming up very, very quickly. You need to know where your two candidates stand on the right to life. Going into the August 9th primary. So buckle in. I'm going to kick this right off. Again, you have two candidates running for office. The first one is Tom Dippel, and the second one is Tony Jurgens. Okay. And so we're going to give you all the information we have about both candidates, their history or their lack of history with the life issue, so you can make educated decisions on August 9th. So I'm going to start off with Tom Dippel. We sent him a candidate survey from Minnesota Right to Life. That's our job as a pro-life organization. We sent him this survey and we asked a few simple questions. And I'm going to talk about the two or three big ones. Okay. So the first question was, will you support the Minnesota Life at Conception Act? Is this something you support? Tom Dippel answered 100% yes. He didn't just say that he would support it or that he would co-sponsor the bill. Tom Dippel promised to be a lead sponsor on life at conception that would effectively do away with abortion on demand in Minnesota. It would say that life begins at the moment of conception. That's what we all know. It's what medicine has proven. It's what God has said in his word. Life begins in the womb. We all know this, and that's what life at conception affirms. So he said he would be an absolute yes vote, and he would sponsor the bill for life at conception in Minnesota. We're very excited about that. The second question was, will you vote to defund Planned Parenthood? Tom Dippel said, absolutely, I will do that, especially after the downfall of Roe versus Wade. We were so happy to see that happen. But one of the side effects of that is going to be, and Tim Walz has made this very clear, that people from all over the country, the surrounding states, Wisconsin, Iowa, et cetera, that people are going to come from those states to Minnesota to get their abortions done here. And in Minnesota, many of those abortions are paid for with your tax dollars. We fund, through the back door, we fund Planned Parenthood with our tax dollars. I'm not talking about we, I'm talking about the legislature funds this stuff every 2 years. We're going to talk about that. Tom Dippel said, yes, I will vote to defund Planned Parenthood. They're the largest abortion providers, baby killers in the country and in Minnesota, and we're going to defund them. So big thank you to Tom Dippel. He's promised in other questions, he promises to use the power of his office to force votes on things, pro-life issues that the babies deserve. It's what we need to do on behalf of the babies. And Tom Dippel has promised on all questions to be 100% pro-life. He's very proudly pro-life. And so if you see Tom Dippel, give him a big thank you for being 100% pro-life and for being unashamed to talk about it. A lot of people just, well, how does scripture say it? They put their light under a bushel basket and they just pretend that those beliefs are better left in the dark. No, 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 no. Tom Dippel says, this is what I am. This is what I believe. He's going to let his light shine. We like that at Minnesota Right to Life. But now we want to talk about the second candidate, and the second candidate running for office is a current state representative, Tony Jurgens. What we have to say and the information we have is very troubling. It's very upsetting, but we're going to give it to you anyway. First of all, Tony Jurgens has declined and then refused to fill out his Minnesota Right to Life candidate questionnaire like Tom Dippel did. He wouldn't fill it out. He said he wasn't going to do it. And the reason he hasn't filled it out is unfortunately because Tony Jurgens has proven already in office that he is not, in fact, pro-life. I'm just going to say this straight up. On May 25, 2017, Tony Jurgens, when Republicans had control of the Minnesota House, Tony Jurgens voted for a bill, Senate File 2. And this bill It did a lot of different things. It was the Health and Human Services Omnibus Bill. But one of the main things that it did was provide funding for abortions, taxpayer funded abortions. Planned Parenthood is used the money from that bill to kill almost 10,000 babies in the state of Minnesota in the year 2017. And then another 10,000 babies died in 2018. And the funding came from Senate File 2, which Tony Jurgens voted for. You can see it on your screen right now. Here's a screen grab of the vote. You can see it for yourself. May 25, 2017. There's an arrow pointing at Tony Jurgens' name in the affirmative column. He voted for this bill. Now, the way this works is the HHS Omnibus Bill. It's a big bloated bill that they pass every 2 years in the state of Minnesota during what we call budget year. And I want to explain what Senate File 2 does just a little bit. I know it can be a little bit in the minutia, a little bit sticky in the details, but I want everybody to understand exactly how this worked. Senate File 2 is the Health and Human Services Omnibus Bill. They pass these bills during budget year, which is every 2 years. So in 2017, that was the funding year for that biennium. And Senate File 2 was the Health and Human Services Bill that provides funding for all sorts of different healthcare programs in the state of Minnesota. One of the major things it does is provide funding for what's called Minnesota Care. And now in the bill, it does say that no Minnesota Care money shall be used to perform abortions, except for in the case of what we call the big three, right? Rape, incest, and life of the mother. Now, there's massive carve outs in that anyway, which we know results in people saying, yep, I want an abortion because this happened because of rape, incest, or what have you. So to us, Minnesota Care would still provide abortions, but they put the language in there anyway, saying that it doesn't. So, and they did this to trick voters. They did this to trick pro-lifers because the other type of medical insurance that is funded in Senate File 2 is what's called Medicaid or the Medical Assistance Program. And the Medical Assistance Program receives the most funding of any medical program in Minnesota, and there are no prohibitions on medical assistance money being used to pay for abortions, which is exactly what Planned Parenthood is doing. You can see it on your screen right now. This is one of the major things that Planned Parenthood does is it says, if you want a free abortion, if you want an abortion paid for by the taxpayers, all you have to do is be on the medical assistance program. This bill directly funded through the medical assistance program the death of thousands and thousands of babies in Minnesota. There were no strict prohibitors in the bill. The medical assistance program is wide open to be used to perform those abortions. And that is what Tony Jurgens voted for on May 25, 2017. Now, a lot of these politicians who did vote for this abortion funding, they're going back and they're pointing at the Minnesota Care language. And they're saying, you see, it says right here that none of this money shall be used to perform abortions, except for in the case of rape. And they're pointing people towards the Minnesota Care money, knowing full well that it is the medical assistance money that is being used to pay for these abortions. And Tony Jurgens voted for it. He knew what he was voting for. And now he's running to go to the Senate. He wants to be senator from Senate District 41. And he's trying to convince the voters that he's 100% pro-life and that he's a staunch pro-life conservative. He's anything but. He's anything but. The reason Minnesota Right to Life got started is because of votes just like this HHS omnibus bill. They passed it in 2017. They passed it in 2019. They passed it in 2021. Every 2 years, they pass these bills funding abortion with your tax dollars, with my tax dollars. And then they sit there and look us dead in the face and they say, No, there's no funding. There's no abortion fund. What do you mean? What do you mean taxpayer funding? That doesn't happen here. Look at the bill. It says it right. They do this on purpose, and that is the reason Minnesota Right to Life got started. That's the reason so many politicians in St. Paul don't like us. Republicans and Democrats don't like us because we are the only organization telling the truth about the abortion funding taking place in Minnesota. And so if you ask Tony Jurgens, he'll probably say something like Minnesota Right to Life. Oh, they're a bunch of con artists. You can't believe them. Go to these other organizations. They're real pro-life organizations. Well, people say that, politicians say that because they keep funding the death of these babies. Here we are, 2022. In 2021, 10,136 babies, 27 babies a day, 1 an hour, more than 1 an hour, every single hour, a baby dies in Minnesota, and it's being funded with our tax dollars. And so if you see Tony Jurgens, tell him to apologize. Tell him to apologize for his wicked vote. Tell him to be honest with the voters. Look him in the eyes and ask him if it's true. Did you vote for Senate File 2 on May 25, 2017? And does this bill, or does this bill not fund the medical assistance program that Planned Parenthood is using to pay for these abortions? And see what he says. See if his eyes can convince you of the truth. That's the truth. Tom Dippel has promised to be 100% pro-life. He's promised in writing, signature on paper. Tony Jurgens, as a state representative, funded abortions that resulted in 20,000 babies being killed between 2017 and 2018. So if you see Tom, thank him very much. Say thank you for being, again, bold and honest about his position on life and about the importance of children and the rights of the preborn to breathe, to have their lives, who are made in the image of God. Tom Dippel is standing up for that. If you see Tony Jurgens, tell him to apologize. Tell him to apologize for that vote. He should have fought harder. And do us another favor, share this video with everybody you know in Senate District 41. Tell them that when they go out and vote on August 9th, they need to vote pro-life. Again, Senate District 41, this is the new district after redistricting. So I'm talking about Hastings, Cottage Grove, and east of Cottage Grove, the Afton area. This is where the new Senate District 41 is at. So guys, now you have all the facts. We've armed you with all of the information we have. Go out, vote pro-life. Let's turn this state around. Let's protect these unborn babies. Continue what happened with Roe versus Wade being overturned. And let's make Minnesota into a pro-life sanctuary. That's what we like. Take care.